And now we're joined by Eric Nicksick, head coach at Xtreme Couture, who had an incredible 2021. First off, Eric, how was 2021 for you looking back at it, especially the holidays? How was Christmas for you?
Yeah, it was good. We really didn't have a day off at all. Francis and I were in the gym training. We opened presents in the morning, and then we had a practice that afternoon. So it's kind of nice, to be honest with you. It's just a different line of work where there's no days off, and you kind of accept that rule no matter what it is. So you make the time with the family, but you also get your work in that day.
And any plans for the new year, or is it still hard at work for you in terms of the New Year's Eve, and how are you celebrating that?
Same, hard at work. The wife and kids are going to go to Bryan Head and go do some snowboarding, but I'm going to be here with my guys. We got Francis obviously, and then Punahele Serrano and Sean Strickland all getting ready for their fights as well. So,
and how different is this for Francis in terms of preparing for January, or fighting over the Christmas period? It's not Christmas period, but in a new year, straight on the pay-per-view card, first pay-per-view card of the year. Is it any different for him?
No, it doesn't really seem like that. I don't feel like there's any difference than it was when we fought Stipe, or we fought Rosenstruck or JDS or anything like that. It's just business as usual. For us, it's a year-round sport. So holidays and things like that. You got to remind us what month it is half the time. We don't even know.
And how exciting is it to kind of get the 2022 off of a bang? Because it's the first pay-per-view of the year. It's a huge fight. It's it's hard to call as well. It's close. It's the biggest challenge to Ngannou to date, really.
Yeah, I think it's great to get this fight, not necessarily out of the way, but it's a big jump in January right away to kind of set the precedence off for the year. And but no, I mean, we're excited for the challenge, and I think come January 22nd, it's going to be some good new things for us, and I think Ciryl Gane deserves where he's at and being there, so he's a great challenge in that heavyweight division. But I'm excited for that fight.
Looking at that fight, do you feel like Francis is on the verge of potentially becoming a superstar in terms of combat sports? He is basically a superstar already, but with the kind of the power, the money, the style, he has a nation behind him. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. Do you feel like he's nearly there, becoming a superstar?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he's there in a lot of rights where he's at in his career, but I really feel like he's just kind of starting to scratch the surface with his athletic prowess. And, we're starting to see the things he's been working on over time in the Stipe Miocic fight. His growth in the cage, I think, is going to be, very important, especially to show those things in this next fight. And, I like to draw a lot of parallels to when you see Kamaru Usman. I think every time when you see Usman in the cage, you start to see more and more new skill sets come in, and he only looks better each time out, and it really has given us an idea of what we want to accomplish as the champion at the heavyweight division.
Do you feel like that first fight with Stipe has allowed that, in terms of looking at what he did wrong in that fight and maybe what he needed to improve on, and in the second fight it's kind of shown everyone like, this is the new Francis and this is the champion?
Well, I think Francis needed to have that experience of that loss with Stipe in the first fight. I think that's important because you were able to see a lot of growth from him, and hit a little bit of adversity, because to be fair, a lot of things came very easy to him, very naturally. And then he hit a roadblock, and then his response to that roadblock has been, 5 or 6 wins in a row, if I remember correctly, and he's knocked everybody out. So, and in that meantime, he's been able to grow inside the gym, inside the training room. And fortunately for us, we haven't really had to show much of anything other than his knockout power. So a lot of the mysteries were unknown for what he's been doing in the past.
And, he joined you since that loss. It was, I believe it was at the Junior dos Santos, or was it the Sir Curtis Blaze that he joined you?
So he joined Xtreme Couture full-time, Curtis Blades 2.
Okay.
So it was after his loss to Derek Lewis, he was at Xtreme Couture full-time there. I started cornering him the Junior dos Santos fight, but he had been working with the team prior to that, and this, kind of getting his footing at Xtreme Couture, and, knowing what we were all about in our system and the way our coaches worked. And I think it took a little bit of time for him to really nail down who he wanted around him and in his corner. So after the Junior dos Santos fight, he pulled me aside. We're in the green room, and he was like, I've been testing you for the last couple of years, or what I've been testing you. I was like, what is that supposed to mean? And he's like, I always wanted to know like who I surround myself with, and I want to make sure that they have good intentions. So he's built his team around a lot of trust.
And you've seen improvements made because he's gone 5-0 then since joining Xtreme Couture. Did you always have a belief that he was going to be the UFC champion?
Yeah, and I think that he could have gone really. I mean, I got to give a lot of credit to the team, of course, but his athletics prowess and how good he is, he could have gone anywhere really, and I think he was going to be successful. But it was just a matter of the right recipe, the right people around him, the right belief systems. We're all fortunate enough to have a guy like Francis in our gym. But it's been something for me. I know that he's been capable of doing, and it's just nice to see it come to fruition in front of our eyes.
Looking at the Ciryl Gane fight upcoming, looking at him as a fighter, he's quite unique for a heavyweight, especially. How difficult is it to play for someone like him? I'm sure maybe finding sparring partners for Francis is difficult as well.
Yeah, they're always going to be difficult. Finding sparring partners for people that want to come and get hit by Francis is not very, very fun. So finding sparring partners at the heavyweight division is always going to be a task, right? And I think for us, if you spend so much time in trying to find somebody that's going to mimic Ciryl Gane, you're going to have problems. You're really not going to find a whole lot of people walking this planet that can do what he does in the cage. But I guarantee you something else, that there's not a lot of people you can find that can mimic what Francis Ngannou does in the cage either. So I think we're both at that kind of Mexican standoff, if you will.
And stylistically, do you feel like this will be his toughest test to date? And in terms of maybe in the future, because the heavyweight division is not looking thin, but it's Ciryl Gane's different to maybe more typical heavyweights.
Yeah, I wouldn't say his toughest test, but I definitely think his most intriguing. I think each fight brings its own element to it. Obviously, in the Stipe fight, you had the past where you're kind of fighting against what happened in the cage before. You're fighting arguably the greatest heavyweight to ever do it. Like there's all those things, a little stack up, that kind of play in your head a little bit. And then now in this fight, obviously, it's a lot of recency bias, we've seen Ciryl Gane fight 3 times since Francis has fought. So Francis has kind of turned into the afterthought when it comes to the heavyweight division, So I think it's nice that we get to go out and try to remind people what he's capable of.
Maybe that's been kind of difficult for Francis as well, because he's used to being more active, and since becoming a champion and getting close into the kind of the title picture, he's become less active due to the complications with the heavyweight division. Do you feel like that stuff been tough for him to kind of hold back and kind of have to wait and be patient as well?
I wouldn't say it's gotten tough on him. Moreover, I think he's become used to some of these things behind the scenes that have kind of inflicted a little bit of downtime in his fighting career. And unfortunately, like when we were fighting Jairzinho, the pandemic hit, and then there was more time, it was more layoff, and then we beat Jairzinho. Then it was the wait for Stipe. So there's just so much stuff in between there, where I know deep down inside he would love to stay active and be able to fight 3 times a year if he could. I think that'd be great for him. But just business aside, I think that he would really like to be in there more often than not.
And what have you personally been most impressed with in terms of looking at Ciryl Gane, as you've had plenty of time to maybe look at tape now, and maybe look one particular fight he stood out to you, being like, okay, yeah, we've got a challenge on our hands?
I took a lot away from the Volkov fight. I think what he showed in that fight against a taller man, a very accomplished striker, and Alexander Volkov, his approach, I think a lot of his demeanor, that he never really seemed flustered or out of character. He doesn't really get squared up. He gets hit hard. I mean, he got hit a few times, but nothing like where it was like a clean, like he got rocked. I think his positional, situational awareness, things of that, what he does with his body, angles that he creates, I think are all very impressive. And I think that he's rightfully the title contender, and I think this is what makes us excited about this fight.
Do you feel like there's any emotion for Francis involved in this, in terms of the story, because of Ciryl Gane being ex-training partner, Fernand Lopez, and maybe kind of what the UFC have kind of promoted, how UFC have promoted it as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that there's not. I just try not to play any more into it as a coach, and we understand we have a task at hand with Ciryl Gane and his team, and we understand there's a backstory to it, but we're not making it like bulletin board material, like, oh, we got to beat your old team or anything like that. It's nothing like that to me, at least. And I don't get that same vibe from Francis at all. I think his history with Fernand Lopez is between those two men. I have nothing but respect for Coach Lopez. On a professional level, he's been nothing but nice to me. So it's unfortunate that that's where this whole thing has come down to. But at the end of the day, it does sell. I think it's a good selling point for the promotion. And if people want to make it more out than it needs to be, they can.
And how difficult is it for you potentially to take emotion out of a fight? I'm not sure if you've had to deal with it in the past, but how difficult is it to kind of make sure the fighters don't get emotional and make sure the mindset is correct for the fight?
Yeah, I think that they feed off a lot of that, and I think if you're adamant about making it about the position that they're in, or their coaching staff, or the this or the that, then it's just going to draw more to the situation other than them focusing on the task at hand, which is their opponent and fighting the right fight. So sometimes you see that quite a bit, like where former teammates fought, like Cody Garbrandt when he fought TJ Dillashaw. I saw that emotion come out of Cody when usually he didn't have that type of emotion. I think that he fought more clean when he fought Dominic Cruz. So you talk about an ex-teammate, and that became a problem.
And there's been some, kind of drama recently with the sparring footage that's come out between them two. What do you make of that? We've heard comments from Francis saying it's manipulated. Do you agree it's manipulated, or do you not taken any kind of attention towards it?
Well, I agree with Francis, of course, because he's my guy. I have a couple of thoughts on that. I have footage everywhere on my phone of fighters in my gym, left and right, guys that we've sparred, guys that have come in to spar. I've never shown that. I've never leaked it. I can make a lot of people look bad with the video footage I have on my phone if I want to put it out that way. I can make anybody look bad or look good with the video footage that I have on my phone. So if you're in control of the narrative, I think that you're able to do those types of things. Now, my other point is that there's kind of a sacred rule to the gym when it comes to filming your sparring. And that is the fact that we're going to film sparring for coaches' use only. And that doesn't go anywhere else, So I don't know who leaked it. I don't know who did what with it, but I know that I have video footage of a lot of guys sparring in my gym, and I've never put it out on the internet.
For Francis, do you believe it helps the fact that he's sparred Ciryl Gane and maybe even light sparring, but still, do you feel like it helps him in terms of knowing the kind of maybe the rhythm of Ciryl Gane? Does it help you in any way into preparing him as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's your best resource of information a lot of that times, and that's what I've done, and myself and Coach Dewey have done is, we really sat down with Francis and tried to pick his brain on some of the stuff that maybe he saw when he was in there and things that he felt. And a lot of times it's not really even technique. It might be body language or the reception that you get from him when you do certain things. And again, this was a few years ago when these guys have sparred last. So both men have grown exponentially in their careers. So it's hard to take a lot of into value when it comes to those things. But Francis has his take on the sparring and the way that things went down in the sparring. It's very different from what you've seen on video, from what he told us that went on. And I guess you could take it for any way that you want, but at the end of the day, these guys are going to figure that out January 22nd.
Do you feel it's possible for Ciryl Gane to underestimate his power at all from sparring, or do you feel like it's impossible to underestimate Francis Ngannou's power?
Man, I'll tell you what, I've been hit, kicked, and beat up, ground and pounded by that dude, and there was a big difference I've noticed when you hold pads for him, and then like in the locker room before a fight. Like in the locker room before a fight, he's not going to let loose. He's not going to take it easy on you in the locker room. He's getting ready to go get in a fight. And the power difference that I feel when he hits pads in practice versus when we're in the locker room to go scrap is night and day, night and day. Like I remember Trevor Whitman was wrapping Justin Gaethje's hands before they fought Tony Ferguson, and we're in Jacksonville. And Francis started hitting leg kicks on me with my pad. And the first leg kick he hit me with took me off my feet. And I did like a half a flip in the air and landed on my side, because, I was used to catching a certain type of low kick off of him. And this one was like, all right, I'm going to try to snap your leg in half low kick. And Trevor's wrapping Justin's hand, and Trevor and Justin both like looked up like, oh dude, are you all right? And it was just a whole new night and day when it comes to that. So, you put 4-ounce gloves on Francis Ngannou and you put him in a cage and turn the lights on. He's a different individual.
You sure you weren't, involved in Jackass? That's what that was all about, or was it definitely preparing to go out?
Oh yeah, it was right. Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen anything about Jackass at all, or have you not been able to see anything involved in that? Because there's been a lot of talk about Francis being in it. Have you seen any clips or anything yet?
No, I haven't. I've heard though, but I haven't heard anything about it yet. I've seen anything about it yet. No. I'm
just looking at Fernand Lopez. He claimed that, with all the gossip of how Francis left the gym, saying that he had ego problems. Have you seen? Obviously, you're not going to claim that he has ego problems at all, but do you feel like he's just trying to give him a bad image, or what do you feel like that's about? Would you feel like that's a bit too much to say or come out with and say?
I can only speak on my experiences alone, and my experiences with Francis have never been like that. He's done a lot of things for my family, for my gym. He was literally in 15 years at Xtreme Couture. He's the first fighter that ever came and brought a check into the gym for buying new mats. Like we've never had that, like he's done a lot of things for our team and for our gym that I'm not saying that, Ferdinand is lying. I'm just saying those aren't my experiences that I've had with him, and from what I've seen and from what he's been a part of my family almost for the last 2 years. It's quite the opposite.
Do you feel like this promotion's kind of getting taken out of context now with the UFC? Because they posted that video as well from a recent pay-per-view where he walked past him and ignored him, and they made a big deal out of that. Do you feel it's getting taken out of context to build up the fight?
No, I think it's just right product placement at the right time. I think they're trying to do the things and move the needle a little bit and do the things to make it a little bit juicier. Yeah. That was at MSG. Francis was walking to his seat. The UFC staff was taking him to his seat and told him, we're going to turn around. We're going to walk back this other way. We're going the wrong direction, and kind of set him up to where they walk past one another. And, it was perfect timing. You watch the camera guy had it on Francis, walk right by. I mean, it was set perfectly, so kudos to the UFC to make that happen. And it did its job.
I'm just looking at his contract situation with the UFC. There's been an uncertainty around that at the moment. How much do you think that depends on whether he defends his belt in terms of the UFC not wanting to pay too much money just in case he loses the belt?
Yeah, I really don't know about any of that stuff as far as the way the contract stuff goes. I've heard a little bit here and there and some of the hangups, and it really had nothing to do with money. I think it has to do with more of like of terms, the length of the terms, and some other stuff in the verbiage. But for the most part, man, I would love to see both sides come to terms where they could both be happy and both make a lot of money and agree on something where, they feel like they're both getting their value out of one another.
I hate to go outside of MMA, but Francis has talked previously about going outside of MMA and following boxing because that's where his kind of passion started. Would you like, if he went into boxing, would you like to help him with that, or would you kind of keep to MMA and keep out of boxing?
I mean, I would be with Francis for whatever he needed me for, even if it was just to be there with him or support, being part of his inner circle. Of course, Dewey has much more experience when it comes to the boxing realm of things. And I think if he went into boxing, I think Dewey would take over more of that head coach role. And, Dewey and I split a lot of our responsibilities with Francis, but I think if it were to go over to boxing, that would be obviously Dewey's realm and not mine. But, I'd be with him for whatever the hell he needed, no matter what.
And he's talked about wanting to fight Tyson Fury. Do you feel like that is ever going to be a possibility?
I think anything's possible when it comes to Francis. I think sky's the limit for him, depending on what he wants to do. And obviously, there's a lot riding on this fight coming up on January 22nd, and God willing, we go out and get the job done. I think the possibilities are endless for the man.
And there's a big fight in March, hopefully. When I'm not sure if it's confirmed yet, Ajamain Sterling against Petr Yan 2, the rematch. He's coming off the injury and the surgery and all that as well. How different is preparation going to be this time in comparison to the first fight, especially with how it all went about?
Well, I think it's going to be a little different in a lot of ways because, I'm going to have Aljo, I think, for about 3 more weeks. And then he's going to head back to New York and finish up everything in New York. So the last time I had him, we were kind of in the midst of the pandemic still and traveling back and forth, where he just decided to stay in Vegas and do a lot of his work and brought a couple guys out from Cerro Longo to help him train at Xtreme Couture. And then meanwhile, like I was on comms with Coach Longo and Coach Sarah and just making sure like everything was going right in the Vegas on the Vegas side of things. So and then now the roles are a little bit more reversed. I think now he's going to kind of start off and do everything out here, which he's been, and then head back home and finish up camp out in Long Island. So, for the most part, I think, his health is a lot better and he's feeling a lot better. So he's been in the gym and he's been able to do a lot more things rather than last camp. It was very touch and go. Like we would write every morning and, hey, how are you feeling? And we would go over the day based on his neck or how he's feeling that day. So it was a very makeshift camp, the best we could to get him through and get him to the fight, So now that he's had a little time off to recover, I'm looking forward to see what he's able to do in the cage.
Do you feel like we'll get the best version of him now as well, with maybe the fuel behind it because of how the last fight played out?
I think so. I really do. And I think it's just such a crap situation for both sides. I've known Petr for a long time, and I don't think that he was trying to maliciously knee Aljo in that regard. It was an oversight on his part, and Aljo didn't want to win the title the way he wanted either. So it was just an unfortunate situation. I think both guys are great competitors, and thankfully these guys get to figure that out in March and they can get after it again and put their best foot forward and see who's the better man.
And what do you make of all the criticism that Aljo's had in past year? Because it has been unfair on him. And have you had any words to him in terms of dealing with it? Because it has been maybe over maybe what people maybe have expected when it happened.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. I mean, we joke about it at this point now. We kind of laugh about it. And he'll tell you he probably didn't help himself in a lot of that stuff either. But in the meantime, like I think he's played the troll. He's, then he's been, he's, the point where he just has kind of gone radio silent and back and forth. But at the end of the day, we all understand that Aljo's a very talented fighter. His talking does itself for him in the cage and what he's capable of doing. We saw that in the Corey Sandhagen fight. We saw that in the first couple of rounds against Petr Yan. He was right there, and I think that people are now just dismissing him, and he never really did anything wrong. What he did that a lot of people didn't agree with was after the fact. Well, he can't really control that. So the narrative's been written. He's just got to go out there and perform, and then everything else. You go win that fight. Well, this is all an afterthought.
You feel like he'll be underestimated going into that fight as well, because I feel like a lot of people have not watched that fight back. He was doing quite well in the fight. He was in the fight. It was starting to go away from him, and it was just unfortunate the way it ended.
And that's good. That's good for us too, because I think a lot of people are going to sleep on him because of that, but I definitely feel that that's part of the case. And he wasn't getting washed that entire fight. It wasn't like he was getting shut out and it was 4-0 going into the 5th round. I mean, Petr Yan was making his way and that fight was going Petr Yan's way. Let's be honest with ourselves, but by no case was he getting shut out in that fight either. Aljo did a lot of good things in those first few rounds.
I have to talk about one of your other fighters, Kamaka, who's had a kind of a whirlwind 2021. His last 2 fights, robberies in a way. I think it's fair to say that if you wanted to label them that, but do you feel it kind of panned out maybe in the best way for him in terms of leaving UFC and taking a different route in Bellator just to get a fresh mindset and maybe kind of fate in a way for him to end up in Bellator?
Yeah, I do. And I think you just have to take each situation, with a grain of salt, and for some reason, whatever, God, fate, the universe, whatever it is put him in this position for some reason or not. But it's up to us to navigate him through those things. And he in my opinion, he didn't deserve to be cut or not re-signed. Essentially, as he fought out his contract with the UFC, but that opened another door for him. But with that being said, we can't leave the situation from the UFC and not look at that and go, well, what could we have done better as a camp or as a team? Not everything is a finger pointing contest. We also have to, look at the inside and say, hey, we could have done these things a little bit better to secure those wins and not allow those robberies to happen. Right. So, I think that was some of the things we focused on in this last camp and before his fight in Bellator was let's be in control of what we can control. And there's areas that we have to be able to make sure that we're not leaving it to the judges the way that it is, that we leave no doubt when it comes to the decisions that are being made.
And how the ending of his UFC journey for now is for him, do you feel like that's kind of maybe burn a fire for him in terms of for his future?
He's probably one of the hardest workers in the gym already. He really is. There's not a practice the kid misses. Him and I are pretty much talking every day when it comes to techniques, or he's sending me videos. Hey, did you see this? Or did you see that? So he's already very much self-motivated, but this has definitely put a chip on his shoulder. And I think he's allowed access to another organizations where he can prove what he's worth and he can prove what he's capable of doing. And, granted, Bellator and the UFC are different organizations. They are, but they're both great for the people that are there fighting for them. So I think you just make the best out of what you can and learn from your mistakes or learn from the process that you're in before. And it can only make you better.
And another fighter who was on the wrong end of a close decision loss was Danny Gay last month against Josh Emmett. What was your assessment of that? It was a very close fight. Some had it scored for Dan, some had it scored for Josh. And what is your kind of plan with Dan now? Is it to kind of sharpen his skill set because he's on the borderline of that top five? He just can't quite get there at the moment.
Yeah, I mean that was a tough fight for me. All right, I don't know, man. Like I felt like he did enough in round 3 to win the fight. But again, we have to go back to the drawing board. We have to go back and assess the third round and look at it and say, okay, what areas could we have done better to make that round go our way? The Sal D'Amato giving round 2 to Josh Emmett was egregious. It made zero sense whatsoever. And, Danny Gay wobbled Josh twice in round 2, had a really great round. So in my opinion, it was 1-1 going into 3. And depending on the judge and what they're looking at, round 3 could have really gone either way. But it's up to us as a coaching staff and a fighter to make sure that we do the best we can to make that decision go our direction. What could we have done better? So, Dan is, man, he's just right there. I agree. And I think for us is just, maybe some outside perspective. He's going to go out and train with Trevor a little bit. He's going to go out and train with Khabib a little bit, do some other things on the side, I think, and just help grow. And that's important for me as a coach too. I think it's important that we step outside our comfort zone and help each other grow and get better. And it's only up from here with Danny Gay. He's one of the best guys in the gym and best guys in the world, man. So I'm excited to see what happens for him next.
We always see what it's like for a fighter to lose a close decision, the emotion that comes out straight away. What is it like for a coach to lose a close decision and be like, oh, that's the wrong decision, or feel like it's the wrong decision and having to deal with that?
It's almost like MMA karma in a weird way. It's like, when you get a bad one, you'll get a good one later on down the line, or, it's for some reason why you just feel like you're always on the bad end of it. But we've had some go our way and some that I was like, oh, I don't know if we got that one, and we did. So you're around this game long enough that I think it comes both sides, both ways. But again, like I said earlier, I think my job as a coach is to figure out how do we make that happen less and less. and make sure that those decisions do go our way and where we can be better. But man, they hurt me bad. Like that one, I didn't even want to get out of bed for like 2 days, man. And I was like, God, this one sucks. And by no means was I screaming it was a robbery. I didn't think like that at all. It just was such a close decision that I felt like we let one go.
I'm just looking forward now. Enough of the past. 2022. What have you set any goals for yourself looking at the new year in terms of what you want to achieve and maybe for your fighters personally?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I want to see our two guys, like, obviously we share Ajamain with Matt and Ray and those guys. I don't say he's our guy by any means, but we do have a lot of invested interest in Aljo, and I would like to see him defend his belt twice, and same with Francis. I would like to see him defend his belt twice, at least this year, and I think that's a goal to start. I'm very happy with the way 2021 changed a lot of people's lives in our gyms. Like I look at Taylor Gordado, I look at Chris Curtis, Casey O'Neill. There's been so many great fighters that have made their name come through Xtreme Couture, win a lot of big fights. Cheyenne Velismus comes to mind. She got 2 bonuses, just recently. So I'm proud to say that like our gym is positively positive, is changing people's lives for the positive. They're getting new cars. They're not having to worry about money in their bank account. They're winning fights. So that makes me happy to see. And I hope to continue that same trend in 2022.
And you talk about some of the standout names who have had incredible 2021s. Chris Curtis, for instance, kind of blew out of nowhere. Is there anybody in particular from your gym that you expect to have a big 2022 that you want to, or is there a bit maybe too much pressure to put on them and kind of saying, oh, look out for this person who's going to do well?
I think there's a lot of prospects we have that are up and coming. I got a young kid named Kobe Fair. He's from Ohio, wrestler. He's an absolute talent. Max Rohskopf, who we saw in the UFC very briefly. He's now back in the gym. He's now 2-0 in Cage Warriors. I think he's getting back to where he once was, physically and mentally. And, he's a human interest story for me. He's like my little brother. I really, really have a liking towards Max. And I just want to see that kid succeed, whether it's MMA or just in life in general. So, I think keep an eye out for Max. You're going to see him getting back in there and doing some good things, which he already has been, but I think you can see him in a major organization here soon. Montel Williams, another young guy we got coming up. Yeah, I think you'll be seeing him fight soon, but those are the guys really off the top of my head that really stand out.
It's great to see that you took Max and doing to hear about that. I didn't know. I'm not sure where he was. I knew he was doing well in the Cage Warriors, which is good to hear. How was that for you in terms of that situation, getting him in and looking at this? How coming back from the loss, his loss was special in a way because he took a lot of criticism, maybe from Dana White and some key names, and he had a lot of pressure online as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird situation for a lot of us. I think, we had been in his corner since day one, and then all of a sudden, he was training over at Drysdale's, and Drysdale, from my understanding, didn't want him cross training between 2 gyms and all this other stuff, and that's from what I understand. And he went and fought in Titan FC. That was the first time he didn't fight with anybody at Xtreme Couture there. He went out and won. He got the short notice fight in the UFC. We all kind of saw what happened, and we didn't speak. I didn't speak to Max for almost 6 months, man. We didn't hear from him at all when he left the gym. And it was about maybe it was about 6 months after the fact that he hit me up and he just said, "Hey man, I'm really sorry for the way everything went down. And would you be interested in grabbing lunch?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, of course." So we sat and talked and just hearing where he came from, in his situation with the UFC and everything that went on with him. You can't help but love the kid, and you just really want to see him come back, whether he competes in the sport again. That's what I asked him. I was like, "Are you looking to come back to fight, or you want to come back to train? Like, what are you thinking?" And I said, "Why don't we just get you back in the gym and see if this is something you still want to do?" And right away, he came back in and he took his lumps, man. There were some guys in the gym that weren't really happy with what happened with him, and he took it on the chin. I think Sean Strickland was the first one to address him. Sean Strickland called him every name in the book. And Max took it on the chin and wore it. And now those two go at it every day. They spar every day. They grapple every day. And somehow, some way, those two have been very good for one another. And really, in my opinion, Sean Strickland has helped Max's mental game and help him become a lot stronger and better fighter. So, he is by far, in my opinion, the most talented guy we have in a room, especially when it comes to the grappling. And what he does on the ground to people, a lot of people don't really understand. It's different. I've seen him take down Francis. I've seen him take down, anybody and everybody in that room, and they have problems with Max when it comes to the grappling and wrestling.
You brought up Sean Strickland. I have to talk about him because he's been very active on Twitter lately, and I don't know if you hear about maybe some of the stuff he says. How do you feel about what Sean says on Twitter? Because it does blow up. It does get a lot of attention. And I feel like a lot of people do pass it off as, just a bit of banter in a way. What do you make of it?
I try not to look at it, to be honest with you, because there's been a few times when he said some stuff on Instagram where I wrote him, I'm like, yo, you might want to take that one down, bro. Like, that's not good. And he's like, really? You think so? I'm like, if you really don't think that what you said was good, I go, bro, you wait till the backlash comes, So he's an interesting dude, man. And I can't say this enough. Like, he's actually a really good teammate. I think he's a really good guy. I think this day and age, what scares people is that he's very real. He's going to tell you how he feels, and he's not going to lie about it. He's not going to lie to your face. Where I think this generation has been cloaked in obscurity, where, they're nice to your face, but talk shit behind your back. Nope, not Sean Strickland. You'll know if the guy likes you or not, and he'll tell you the way he thinks. But at the end of the day, I think for me as a coach, been working on helping his delivery, the way he talks to people. But good luck, man. You have your money's cut out for you in trying to take care of that guy.
It's funny when you talk about delivering, it's not to do with the punches, it's to do with his words. But just looking at yourself as a coach, you won Coach of the Year for 2020 and 2021 of different establishments, and, getting that kind of recognition for you. What does that mean anything to you? Is that something you take positively, or is it something you're just like, thank you? And what is it for you to kind of get that recognition for your work?
I think when I in the moment, I just kind of brush it off and keep my head down and keep grinding. Yeah. But, in certain scenarios, it is nice to stop and think about how far you've come, what you've accomplished along the way. And, I think for me, like having Robert Follis in my life early, he saw things in myself that maybe I never really saw as a coach. And he saw those things early on and believed in me in a lot of ways that maybe I didn't believe in myself at then. But having him, and then his passing lit a fire underneath me in a different way where I wanted to make him proud. So, that always is kind of cool. With the amount of time that we're away from our families, they're the ones that suffer the most from our absence. And, being able to bring home any accolades or anything to show where my time has been going, I think it's important too for my family as well. So yeah, it does. It feels good to know that like people are at least recognizing the hard work. And then at the end of the day, to be honest with you, Deanna, it's a testament to the team and the fighters that we have, because, if we're losing fights and getting steamrolled, then no one will know who the hell you are, but they're the ones going in there and they're performing, they're executing the game plans that we're putting out there. They're believing in the process, and they're the ones going out and winning the fights, and they make us look good as a coaching staff.
And looking at titles in terms of the UFC title, what does that mean to you in terms of when a fighter wins for that? Is that the same for you as being able to have that accolade? And people are like, look, this guy is a UFC champion. He has another UFC champion.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. I think my first title was with Lance Palmer in the PFL. It was such a journey and a process where it was a tournament style, so it was very different. You know, we saw almost the finish line. It was like New Year's Eve, it was the finish line. We knew like where the destination was going to take us to. Whereas like in the other organizations, you know, it's always kind of a crapshoot. You never know when you're going to get there and how long it's going to be until you get your title shot and all those other little things that it's a very different process. I think when you look at the title situations when it comes to organizations and stuff, but you know, for the most part, for me, man, like they're all beautiful in different ways, and they're all learning experiences in different ways. But it's also like a reminder that, man, like you got to hit the reset button because everybody's now coming after your ass, and doing what you did last time isn't going to be enough. You got to do more.
Finally, just looking at your UFC 270, how do you think it will go down? Do you have any kind of expectation set for it, and kind of what do you expect from the fight in terms of a pace, in terms of a tempo?
I really don't. And you know, we've talked quite a bit at some different things on how we want to approach the fight. But for me, I'm a scenario guy. Like I like to run through a bunch of different scenarios on my own in my own head. I don't like to throw them in the fighter's lap because I don't want to put too much on them. But I try to give routes or different pathways. Like, hey, if this happens, then we have these choices. If this happens, we have these choices. And where do you feel most comfortable? So it's a lot of dialogue that goes back and forth with me and Francis and Coach Dewey, and making sure we assess the situation the way we want to, pending on the way that things went down. So obviously for this fight, I can't disclose a lot, but I can tell you in the Stipe fight, you know, our goals were very simple in the beginning and how they were laid out. Our goals were obviously keeping center mass of the octagon. It was in the apex. It was a small cage. We didn't have much real estate to move. If you put your back to the cage against Stipe, there's a good chance that he's going to be on the offensive to look to wrestle and use the cage to take us down. But if you have Stipe's back to the cage, you know, kind of already in where his shot selection would be. Meaning you back him up to the cage, then he shoots is probably going to be more on our terms rather than, you know, unexpectedly. And then where do we place our punches? So some of the punches that you saw in the Stipe fight were aimed to his chest. And we did that to try to negate some of the takedowns and make him feel like if he changed levels, there was something there that could hit him. You know, we started chopping the calf kick. So all those little things, I think that we wanted to set forth in the fight. You started to see them play themselves out. And then the whole game plan started to roll.
And without going into the game plan at all, is there any kind of keys to victory, do you believe, for Francis in terms of getting past Ciryl Gane that you've kind of highlighted maybe from previous fights that Gane's fought in?
Yeah, I think for us is just stay patient, you know, and that was a big key factor in the Stipe fight. You know, we talked about the patience and things like that, but what Francis has been developing himself into is his, to me, like his shot selection, the punches that he's throwing and the way that he's throwing them. You know, he's not a brawler like we would see, where in a bar room, the guys throw punches, right? Fighters place punches. They know where they're going to put the punches because they know where they're going to direct you. They know what the next shot is after that. And I think that's what you're starting to see from Francis in his evolution is, you know, he threw a cross lead uppercut to split Stipe's guard and dropped him. You know, he threw out of southpaw, threw a cross same side head kick. You know, because there were things that he saw in the data that he collected throughout that fight that he was able to go, okay, I can go back to my skill set and know what we worked on or what I see, and he's able to implement those things. So, you know, to his credit, man, I mean, he's the guy that's in there painting the picture. We just hope to give him the right paint.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Eric. I really appreciate it. All the best for UFC 270, all that's to come in the new year, and I wish you all the luck.
All right, thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on, Dion.